Good day, everyone. It's Palm Sunday, the most important week of our church year, Holy Week. This week, I just want to share with you a parable that Thomas Reese from the National Catholic Reporter shared with us a couple of years ago as a reflection as we enter into this holiest of weeks and begin the Triduum on Holy Thursday and continue it with Good Friday, and then the great celebration of the Easter Vigil, and then, of course, Easter Sunday. The parable that Thomas Reese told or wrote about was about a Jewish father whose son was tortured and killed in a death camp during Hitler's attempt to exterminate the Jews. The father was a pious Jew who had always observed the laws of the covenant. In the covenant, God promised to be their God, and the Jewish people promised to be his people. They would observe the demands of the covenant, and God would protect them. This Jewish father felt he had observed his side of the covenant, but that God had failed. God failed to keep up his part of this deal by not protecting his son. So in the parable, the father decides to sue God for breach of contract. To make a long story short, in the parable, God was found guilty. He had failed to protect the son. The judge decided that God should be punished under the terms of lex talionis, an eye for an eye, or in this case, a son for a son. God would have to have a son who would be tortured and killed. Pretty powerful parable as we enter into Holy Week. And as Thomas Reese talks about it, this parable reverses the old theology. Rather than Jesus dying for our sins, Jesus dies for God's failings. That God created a universe in which suffering and evil are inevitable. There's no philosophical or theological explanation for evil and for suffering, especially the suffering of the innocent. Rather than explaining it to us, we believe that God decided to join us in our suffering. If we have to bear it, so will he. Rather than just sitting on the sidelines and cheering us on, God joins us in the struggle against evil, and God suffers with us. And the crucifixion that we celebrate or remember on Good Friday is the sign of God's love for us. But by not forgiving us our sins, because God does not need the death of Jesus to make him forgive, he already wants to forgive us. And the crucifixion is the logical consequence of the incarnation, of God becoming one of us. God decided to join us and take the consequences of being human, be what they ever might be. So the crucifixion, as Reese says, is God's way of getting our attention. God's way of saying, despite all the evidence to the contrary, I am with you, I love you. But the crucifixion cannot be understood without the resurrection. God's sign that evil and suffering cannot have the last word. He joined us in our suffering, and now he wants us to join him in everlasting life. I pray for all of us, my cathedral parish, all of you parishioners, all of you who are tuning into this, that this Holy Week will bring us all closer to God and closer to each other as we realize that God shares our suffering so that we share each other's suffering and we support one another with the great promise of Easter. Have a really good Holy Week, everyone, as we approach the great celebration of our redemption.